Hi everyone, my name is Hazel and I make very random things, so if you enjoy that type of thing, stick around. So I'm starting off by wetting my watercolour paint palette, and I have a little mister spray bottle for that. I have pre-drawn using just ordinary graphite pencil. It's HB for anyone interested. And I'm starting with a very yellow for the head. I'm not 100% sure why I started with such a yellow, but I just thought I'll start with the lighter colours and it'll save me cleaning my brush cleaning water afterwards. So I started with the black on the back to stay as far away from the head as possible because I am very lazy and couldn't be bothered drying it before moving to the next colour. Then I went in with some darker black to darken the black parts. Then I decided, will I do the eyes? Nah, I'll do the nose first. So I went in with way too pigmented black for the nose, but that's okay, we'll lighten that later. Then I went in with this yellow and this brown mixed together, and I chose to start by the ear. I do not know why, no particular reason. Then I hesitated and decided, was this a good idea? But apparently it was. We'll go with it anyway. We've started, so we'll finish. I used this grey and this pinkish colour to make this greyish pinkish colour for the shadows on the white fur of the dog. I very evenly spread it, as you can see. So I went in with this grey colour for around the eyes, a very watered down grey. And then of course, in true Hazel fashion, I decided that's not quite good enough, so I'm going to change it to brown. In the reference photo, it was quite dark, so it was quite difficult to see. So I got this yellow because the dry hide bone that the dog had in the reference photo had yellow in it. So I added the yellow and I had an idea for this, trust the process. I added a little touch of yellow to the yellow. But it's a darker yellow, so it makes it a darker yellow and more true to the photo I was using as a reference. Then I added the shadows on the bone because there are shadows on the bone in the photo. I decided at this point to do the eyes, mainly because it looked a little bit ghostly and gaunt and was mildly creepy. Then I decided to push the boat out and go for the hard part and start on the shadows. There was a grey mat underneath the dog in the photo, so I tried to replicate that. I contemplated going with a lighter colour, so we add grey and then we add more grey and then we add more grey, and then lo and behold there's more grey. But now we're adding black because the grey wasn't dark enough. So we need to add black to the shadows. Then I got a phone call and accidentally left my phone on screen, so I do apologise for that. And now I'm adding more grey because why not? We need more grey in our lives. So skip to the good bit. Now we're going to add more grey, and it's going to add some texture to the carpet that's underneath the dog. Then I'm going to get brown, and in true Hazel fashion, I'm going to ruin the grey because I am too lazy to dry it. But I'm also too impatient to wait for it to dry. So I decided, okay, back in, let's do that. Then I was like, around the eyes is a bit light, so I'm going to add in a little bit of messy kind of brown, trying to avoid resting my hand on the grey part that is still very wet. As you will see, I'm an idiot, and I messed it up again, but that's okay. So now for the tedious drawing process, because I've now ruined it twice, and it's splashed a little bit, there's a few stray black dots, but that's okay too. It's handmade art, that's part of the process. Yes, the drawing takes ages. Yes, I've sped it up to 1,000 times speed. Now we're going to add even darker shadows to the shadowy bits. So we're going to add black where there's black because it's black. Then we're going to add some browny grey brown to the already browny grey brown bits to add darker bits to the browny grey brown bit. Then we're going to tediously dry it again for far too long. Then, to save you guys the time and effort, we're going to skip to writing the name of the dog above the dog, just for that fancy little extra. Then, because I thought it looked a little bit like a magic carpet, I decided to add a shadow next to the shadow of the mat. Then, of course, we're drawing it again, because, you know, we're drawing it again. So I used orange to add more orange to the eyes, because they weren't orange enough. Then I used a light grey to add to the black the shine of the nose, because I used far too much pigment in the initial coat. Then I used the same grey to add some shadows to the shadows to make them a little more shadowy. I used some kind of peach cream colour to add a little few highlights to the orange, because it was very orange. Then I used white to add some form of texture to the flat black bits and add a little bit of shine. The light source was actually behind the dog, so it wasn't quite ideal for sketching from, as you saw in the reference photo. Then I added more black to the black bits that weren't black enough initially. I added an edge, because there's an edge on the carpet in the picture. Then I added more shadow to the shadow of the carpet, because it wasn't shadowy enough. I then added a few black strokes to add a little bit of texture to the black fur, because obviously it's black, it's not white, so I can't use white. But then I uses white to add to the white fur. Peely. Here's the finished product. I'm reasonably happy with it for it being maybe my 5th watercolour pet portrait. Now for the stamp of approval. Yes, I struggled opening the stamp, of course I did, I'm filming myself. Try to get it reasonably centre. Slam it down. Yes, appreciate my brilliantly painted nails, I'm an artist, don't you know. Then of course we have to frame it, as this is a commission piece. I was asked to do it for a friend of a friend. Poor Bella passed away unfortunately, and this is the finished product. So I hope the owners like it. I hope you enjoyed watching me make it and listening to me ramble on. And please hit like and subscribe if you want to see more. Thank you.